I say no. Why? Because the vacuum would be filled by additional foreign fighters flowing in from Syria, additional foreign fighters flowing in from Iran and Saudi Arabia. And it would give Iran a foothold on the future of Iraq. And the last thing I want to do is to give Iran a greater sense of leveraging political outcomes in Iraq. Now, there's a race between two clocks right now in Iraq. One clock is the political process. The political process clock is there because of the armed forces. There would not have been elections January 30th, 2005, a referendum October 15th, and the elections again on December 15th, were there not the armed forces present. So what's the second clock? The insurgents clock. Which clock will win? I would say that the purpose of military force right now is to speed up the political process and slow down the insurgent process. And I think that is, in fact, what is happening. The political process is creating distance between the Sunni Muslims on one hand and the foreign fighters on the other hand. Eventually, therefore, the insurgency will dry up. My colleague Jim Zogby mentioned that he was in favor of American withdrawal. Who isn't? All the Americans' forces are in favor of withdrawal. George W. Bush is in favor of withdrawal. At issue, ladies and gentlemen, is time. Do you withdraw suddenly and unleash the forces of uncertainty with respect to Iran and Turkey and Saudi Arabia, or do you withdraw in an adult-like, moderate manner? Thank you very much.
Professor Tanter, explain something to me. George Bush says, when our commanders on the ground tell me that Iraqi forces can defend their freedom, our troops will come home with the honor they have earned. Let me get this straight. The US will stay until the Iraqis can assure their own security when the most powerful army in the world at the moment can't secure them either. You're asking the Iraqi army, which exists only in a rudimentary form, to do what the most powerful army in the world can't do. It's a little much, isn't it?
The United States Army is not a counterinsurgency force. The United States Army, the mission was accomplished when the president went on the Lincoln aircraft carrier and said, mission accomplished.
The mission of an occupying power is also under the Geneva Conventions to assure the safety of the civilian population. That they have signally also failed to do, haven't they?
And Mr. Sebastian, Tim, if there were a precipitous American withdrawal, that would endanger, I repeat, the safety and security of the non-combatants.
You don't think they're endangered enough as it is, when up to 100,000 of them have died in the last 2.5, 3 years?
Non-combatants are targeted by suicide bombers, foreign terrorists, and Saddamists who are coming in from Syria with money.
So why stay a signatory to the Geneva Conventions if you can't live up to their provisions?
The issue is not the signatory of the Geneva Convention. America is not only a signatory of the Geneva Convention, America is enforcing the Geneva Convention by being an occupying power. Where else, what other country do you have such representative institutions growing up except under American and British occupation? You didn't have representative institutions growing under Saddam Hussein. You have a parliament a parliament that's been elected in Iraq.
You have elections and widespread violence.
15
Are you calling this democracy?
Tim, there's a difference between majority rule and minority rights. And what I like about the Iraqi Constitution is that the Iraqi Constitution brings in liberty with majority rule. It brings in federalism with minority rights in a very, very conscious way. I'm proud of that Constitution. I've read it.
Liberty for those who are blown up daily by the roadside. Okay.
The roadside bombs, by the way, come in from the East. They come in, the high technology that Iran is sending in, I think is very, very problematic and very troubling to me, and I know we will get into this later. I will yield the floor.
Professor Tanter, thank you very much indeed. All right, I want to now throw this open to the audience, and there's a gentleman right in the first row. You have a question.
my question to Mr. Al-Bayati then, if you're so concerned about the involvement of neighboring countries in Iraq, and that is the primary reason behind your support for the occupation, why is it then that the political factions that you personally represent are so allied with Iran and have been over and over supportive of creating a particular form of government in Iraq that Iran would very much like to see? Thank you.
He was asking about your party, which is supported by Iran, isn't it?
The reason the party was in Iran, because there was only 2 countries who opened their doors in the face of the Iraqis who were suppressed. It was Iran and Syria. And this is why you have the biggest communities for the Iraqis is Iran and Syria, and then some of them fled to different countries like the Great Britain. Now, that is why most of the Iraqis went in Iran. It is the natural place for the Iraqi opposition to grow there. But we don't have any influence from the Iranian on us. Our decision is an Iraqi decision.
All right, gentlemen in the third row, could you stand up, please?
Stand up.
Stand up, please.